My name is Damalare Sonoiki, and this is not another industry podcast. It's an excuse for me to talk to my favorite people and the most inspiring people from around the entertainment industry. So everyone from actors, models, writers, producers, influencers, and all of that. Anyone in the entertainment industry, and even like entrepreneurs as well too, because why not? And but this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's a solo episode. I'm going to do a recap of the Drake show at the Apollo. So I went to night 2 of Drake's show at the Apollo recently, and it was just a really, really good show. Like I was very, very, impressed. Actually, like, who am I? But it was just a really good show, and so it made me think about Drake's sort of legacy, right, and like where he stands, sort of with all the greats, and how he's kind of been able to be this voice of a generation. And it made me think a lot about, I think that as a television, there's something I learned in TV writing that reminds me a lot about what Drake does. Like something that like sort of I think every sort of great artist has some sort of superpower, right? I think that they're really, really good at. And, rappers are no different. And I think Drake's superpower is something that I think is one of the keys to the way he's able to connect with people, and like, the way the reason he's had this longevity and been able to go, this guy who was a Canadian child actor playing a character in a wheelchair to become this massive, massive star, this massive rap star and just star in general. And so I want to talk about that as well. But just to recap, so actually it got announced, months ago that Drake was going to do this one night at the Apollo, and then it got postponed. It's supposed to be in November. And then I was, when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like he hasn't performed publicly in things like some small private performances. I think there's like a New Year's thing, maybe like for like some sort of charity gala, or something. But hasn't performed since Scorpion, right? Since 2018. There's been the pandemic. There's been all these things. A lot's changed in 5 years. A lot of projects have come out since then. Dark Lane demo tapes. What's it called? I should probably know this. CLB. Honestly, never mind. Her Loss. Yeah, I mean, a lot has come out since then. And so, it was good. I was like, oh, this is going to be a moment, right? Like one night only at the Apollo. And also just the fact that you're never going to get to see someone of Drake's stature at a small venue like that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I was looking up, Bad Bunny was doing 3.7 million per show in Latin America and 11.1 million per show in the U.S. And if you, let's say, Drake, I looked up the Aubrey and the Three Migos tour, RIP Takeoff, and that one was 111.21 million box office for 54 shows. So that's 2 million gross per show. And obviously there's been, inflation and just Drake is bigger since then. So if you just assume that a Drake show is going to gross, let's say 4 million, for it to work at a 1,500 capacity place, each ticket would have to go for like $2,700, which, so you're just never going to see someone of Drake's stature really at an intimate venue like that. And even if you look at it, they didn't sell tickets. It was a Sirius XM partnership. Like, it just wouldn't make sense really to, for someone who can pack out a stadium to do a 1,500 person venue. So I knew, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a really, really dope moment. And I definitely want to be in the building for it. And so a friend of mine, this guy Armand Sadler, he writes for, he's a hip hop reporter at Vibe magazine. He's also a very big Drake fan. And so, we talked about it, like, he was excited about it. And it got postponed to December because of Takeoff's passing, RIP. And then, so I was going to go in December, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who is, who's very, very close with Drake. If you ever listen to, Drake's always name dropping, which I'm going to talk about a little later, which I think, which has to do with the thing that I think is one of the keys to his success and his superpower. But he's always name dropping, right? So if one of the people who he's frequently name dropping in his music, one of his very close friends, me and that person were talking. He wanted me to help him with this project that he was working on, and so I was like, hey, I'll be in New York, this weekend or this week or whatever. Let's talk then. And he said, hey, so right before that, he was like, hey, if you're going to be in New York for this show in December, it's actually not happening. It's getting canceled. Or it's getting moved. I have to find his exact wording, but like, it's not going to happen. I can't remember if he said it's not going to happen that weekend or if it's not going to happen at all. But, so I was like, okay, well, that's great. And so that was a few days before. That was like quite a few days before it became kind of public that that it got announced. That it got that it got announced. Oh yeah. So he said, I was like, hey, I get to New York Monday. I'll try to do, whatever the project that we were talking about. And he said, just got word NYC is canceled, FYI. So if you were going for that, then cancel it. You're welcome. I was like, okay, well, yeah, thanks. And I had other, I still ended up going to New York. I had other kind of business and stuff to attend to, and people out there. But I told my friend Armand and a couple, another friend, I was like, hey, this thing looks like it's canceled. And a few days later, it got announced that it was moved to January. And Armand had given me the new dates, which was like 21st and 22nd. 2 nights. I can't remember when it went from 1 night to 2 nights. If it was when it got the takeoff thing, or if it was when it got postponed again for quote production delays. But it was now 2 nights, January 21st and 22nd. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll still go. Although I could only go to I could only go to the so he added a second date the first time I got pushed back. So when takeoff died, added a second date, moved it to December. And then December, my buddy's like, hey, it's canceled. And then, a few days later, they announced that it's that it's been moved, that it's been postponed. I don't think they had announced the new dates at that time. But anyway, so Armand's like, hey, the new dates are January 21st and 22nd. A friend of mine was getting married on the 21st. I was like, okay, I'm obviously not going to miss that. It's one of my closest friends. Congratulations to him. Although they had already been married. They did the COVID, like go to the courthouse and then have the ceremony and everything later. So I was like, okay, I'll go on the 22nd. And I had other stuff to do in New York as well. But I went, and I remember, kind of, because you had to win tickets. It's like a Sirius XM raffle. And I was like, okay, I'll just go. Like I met Drake in 2016, and I'm not ever gonna act like we're like best friends or something like that. Like I'm on his Christmas card, but we between he'd have parties at his house. We had a lot of mutual friends, and he would be at Delilah all the time, and just kind of all these kind of private parties. You get to eventually just become a face, and so I got to know a lot of the people over there, and even like the one guy who he's like I said, he's someone who Drake is always name dropping. He's one of those people who's Drake frequently mentions in his music. And then this other guy who works very closely with the team, works professionally with them. He had reached out to me around the time of her loss to write something, because if during her loss they had all these skits and this kind of rollout. They did the kind of fake Tiny Desk and the fake colors and the fake SNL performance and then the fake Vogue cover and the 21 Savage What's in My Bag video. So he'd asked me for ideas for one of those skits that they did, and so I known the guys for a while. So I was like, okay, like I should be able to get a ticket from have one of them put me on the list. Although I wasn't sure, because I think New York, I've been around long enough, that whole them and also just other kind of similar situations where, one, it's New York. So it's not like LA where it's like, oh, they're always there. Like New York, Drake doesn't really perform there often. He's just not there often. And so that means that everyone around him, like if people are hitting me up for tickets, then the people who are around him are getting hit up by way more people for tickets, and just for, hey, like, can you hook me up? So that means that, because there's going to be a bunch of pent up demand, because he hasn't performed there, he hasn't really been there. And then also the Apollo again is a very, very small venue. It's a 1,500 capacity venue, and so I was like, okay, like I don't know, like I'm gonna hit up my guys for tickets to be on the list, but there's no guarantee, because again, this is a 1,500 capacity venue, and it's also, I'm asking pretty last minute. But I was like, whatever, like I'll go to New York, I'll figure it out. And so I got, my friend got married, congratulations. And then that was Saturday night, and then Sunday morning I got to New York kind of 12, early afternoon. And so I hit up a few people, and then I called, I was like, okay, I gotta get these tickets. So I called the buddy who had one of the guys who works very closely with Drake, and who's part of because also, like, for that type of thing, like not everybody and their mama can put people on the list. You have to be like pretty, I don't know. So he was like, I called him, sent me a voicemail, but he was like, hey, I'll just put you on the list, like, whatever. So I was like, all right, boom, perfect. And so I got there around, I don't know, 7 something, and it was Like I'd already seen the set and everything the night before because all the videos and Armand did really good. He was posting on Twitter and everything. And so I saw this. I mean, it was amazing. Anyway, so the set list, which I did not put this together. This is a website that kind of keeps track of all these things. The set list, it was Over My Dead Body, Wu-Tang. Well, okay, it's like 50 songs long almost, but it's Over My Dead Body, Wu-Tang Forever, Trust Issues, Marvin's Room, Say Something, Feel No Ways, Practice, Jaded, Jungle, Karaoke, Best I Ever Had, Over, Headlines, Hell Yeah, Effing Right, I'm On One, Sorry From the Bottom, No New Friends, Energy, Know Yourself, Nonstop, God's Plan, Laugh Now, Cry Later, Hold On, We're Going Home, Controller, One Dance, In My Feelings, Passion Fruit. Then Uzi came out and did Just Wanna Rock, which really turned the place up. And then he did XO Tour Life, and Drake came back out, did Way Too Sexy, Wait For You, Massive, Calling My Name, Sticky. And I guess it says that Yebba, I guess they just played One More Smile, which is by Yebba. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Yebba's Heartbreak, and then Dipset came out again. I remember I saw the Dipset came out the first night, and I thought, okay, maybe it'll be somebody else the second night. Although they had like a very specific Harlem set for Dipset, so I was like, people were like, well, they'll probably come out both nights because they're not gonna probably use that set just once. And they were right. So Dipset came out, did Oh Boy, Hey Ma, Certified Gangsters, and then 21 Savage was about to come out, do Rich Flex, but then somebody fell or jumped, and so things got paused for like 15, maybe even 20 minutes. Got paused, let's say like 15 minutes, and the lights came back on. Weren't really sure if the show was gonna go on or not. And I thought, especially after the whole Travis Scott thing, like, obviously, RIP to the people who who lost their lives at Astroworld. Not saying it's Travis's fault or anything. But after that, I thought, okay, maybe they're gonna like shut it down. But no, like the show went on, and so they did Rich Flex, Privileged Rapper, Spin About You, Jimmy Cooks, Knife Talk, and then Drake closed out with Legend, and then I guess kind of So Anxious, like singing the parts of So Anxious that kind of sampled on Legend. But yeah, it was a really, really good show. And I think what the thing that was really dope about it is that there was kind of a narrative arc, right? Like there were set pieces. So like Drake's childhood kind of basement bedroom was recreated, and he's like sitting, starts off Over My Dead Body, like sitting on the bed. And it's kind of like recreating that, like, where he wrote a lot of his early songs in this basement with his mom. In this basement, where he lived as a child with his mom. And then they also had a set that was kind of like a record label executive studio. So he talks about how he, coming to New York, which for Toronto, I haven't gotten to know all those guys and people from Toronto, like Director X and just everyone who's kind of in that Toronto music scene. New York for them was like making it. Like they would pretend they were from New York. They would speak with New York accents. That's why it's such a big deal when Drake and other people started kind of speaking with their actual Toronto accents. Like they very much wanted to be American. And so to get to New York and then get turned down by every single label. So they had this kind of actor who was who just sat there pretending to be a label executive. And, they had like a pre-recorded kind of voiceover where he's like, oh, Drake, you're the guy from Canada, right? Basically just like being, very dismissive. And then, so it's like, there's like an actual production piece to it, which you never really get a lot of times in a rap. And I love rap. Like you never really get a lot of times, right? A lot of times it's just like almost like karaoke, like the DJ's playing the music and the rapper's kind of, the backing track is really doing everything, right? The rapper's not really performing, but like, it was actually a performance. Like there was his microphone was on and there, he was, his voice actually sounded really good. And, they had these set pieces and like a real story arc to the whole thing, which I know, and like, and also just like lights and, it was really, really, really well done. Give you a nice little, lanyard. I gave you some t-shirts too, or a t-shirt, but I like forgot my t-shirt. I like lost it somewhere. Shout out. Thank you for taking care of me, putting me on the little, they have the little envelope, thing, whenever they put you on that list. But yeah, I think, it's really well done. But anyway, it made me think also just about, there's like how Drake's managed to become so big and like connect with somebody, like just connect the way he does. And it made me think about, so there's something that like Kenya used to say, Kenya Barris, creator of Blackish, would say when, like writing for Blackish, I feel like I got to go to school almost under Kenya Barris, who is, the greatest writer, comedy writer, like right now. And there's something he would say which is that like the specific is universal. And it's funny, I used to think it was just his quote, but now that I'm like I was recording, I was like kind of doing some research for this video, and it turns out that it is, I don't know if he got it from, if Kenya got it from this person, but there's this James Joyce quote. The writer James Joyce says, "In the particular is contained the universal." But the idea is that like getting specific, like if you want to make something appeal to a lot of people, instead of making it very broad, make it very specific. And if you think about comedy writing, that's something that, all the shows that get made, right? Blackish is based on Kenya's life. And it's always funny to me when you see people say, "Oh, he's always casting these light-skinned people in black, Black AF and Blackish," and it's like, yeah, it's based on his life. Like that's what his kids look like. That's what his wife looks like. If you look, Tracy Ellis Ross's character is named Rainbow. Kenya's actual real life, at the time of the show, real life partner. I hate when people say partner. I guess, spouse. Is her name is Rainbow, and so. But even taking it away from Blackish, like if you think about all the shows that get made, at least comedy-wise, it's things that are based on people's lives, right? Like Lena Dunham, Girls, that's her life with her sort of like Jewish Upper East Side friends who went to kind of Oberlin and like these, kind of Northeastern liberal arts colleges with parents who were like in the New York art literary scene. Issa Rae, Insecure. That's, she grew up in LA. Black woman, obviously, dating, trying to grind on your career and also like date. And so that's based on her life. Fresh Off the Boat, based on, Eddie Wong's life. I think it's Eddie Wong, right? But all these shows, I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm obviously is, based on, it's Eddie Wong. But yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm based on Larry David's life. Even if you go back to Seinfeld, right? I don't know if he had friends like Elaine and Kramer and stuff, but all these shows, Lena Waithe, it's not The Chi isn't a comedy, but Lena Waithe grew up in Chicago. But yeah, if you just like peel back all the layers, the more kind of specific you get, it makes it kind of appeal more broadly. Like Kenya grew up in kind of like, I think, Inglewood, then became a successful writer and moved to kind of Sherman Oaks, like a nice neighborhood in the Valley in LA. And so that show is about that experience. It's a very specific experience. And I think with Drake, he's able to, I think that's like his superpower is in his specificity, right? Like he gets really, really specific when he writes. I'm trying to think of other comedies that like drill this point home. What comedies are on right now? Let's see what comedies. Let's see what comedies are on network TV. I mean, yeah, whatever. Blackish, Insecure, Girls, Fresh Off the Boat. All these things based on the creators. Oh, Abbott Elementary. I mean, her mom was a teacher, right? Like, there are all these things. I feel like, right? Like they tend to be based on the life of, like the Goldbergs, I believe, is based on like the guy's childhood. Let's see, the Goldbergs. So Adam F. Goldberg, so I think it's literally, Adam F. Goldberg is the creator and showrunner of the TV show The Goldbergs, a television sitcom based on his childhood. So yeah, like making things that are very specific. These shows end up having broad appeal because the specificity people can relate to. And so I think that specificity is sort of Drake's superpower, in the sense that like if you think about all like let's say all the big rappers, right, all the greatest rappers, which I think like you could say Drake is one of the greatest rappers. Nas, his superpower is like his rhyming pattern and syncopation. Like I can't play music, on YouTube and like Spotify, Apple, whatever. So I'll just like say the lyrics. Just imagine that I'm Nas. Also, shout out Nas. He's very close. He's very close to Blackish because his cousin's mom his Yara Shahidi is Nas's cousin's daughter. So yeah, Nas came to set during my episode, and like Nas would come around, and I met him at Harvard years ago, and he also put in word for me for a pilot that I got, which is really, really dope, which he didn't have to do. So shout out to Nas, shout out to Yara and her mom who helped, Yara's mom who helped make that happen. But anyway, so Nas, right? His superpower is sort of like his rhyming patterns, his syncopation. In music, syncopation is like a variety of rhythms played together. I'm reading the definition to make a piece of music, making part or all of a tune or piece of music offbeat. So more simply, syncopation is a disturbance or interruption of the regular flow of rhythm. A placement of rhythmic stresses or accents where they wouldn't normally occur. If you think about Nas, like his rhyming pattern, his flows, like they're very syncopated. Rappers I monkey flipping with the funky rhythm I be kicking. Musician inflicting composition of pain. I'm like Scarface sniffing cocaine. New York State of Mind. But like all those little pauses, right? Like rappers I monkey flipping with the funky rhythm I be kicking. Pause. Not pause in the sense of like the whole like allegedly like homophobic thing, but like he pauses. I be kicking. Musician inflicting composition. So all that. And also Nas's other superpowers, like those internal rhymes, right? Like a lot of rappers just rhyme at the end of a bar, right? Like, if you think about like old school kind of hip hop, a hippity hop and you don't stop, whatever, like you rhyme at the end of a bar. But you just rhyme like one syllable. Like the rain, I was going, let's make it rain. I'm gonna go to Spain. Whatever, like you rhyme that one syllable and it's always at the end. Whereas like and Rakim was really the pioneer of this, of like multisyllabic rhymes, and then also internal rhymes. So Nas, like I said, like rappers I monkey flipping with the funky rhythm I be kicking. Musician inflicting composition. So like that's like a rhyme. That's like how many rhymes is that in that one line, right? Flip 'em, rhythm, kicking, musician inflicting composition. I'm like Scarface sniffing cocaine. Like that's what. Monkey flip 'em, rhythm. Well, monkey flip 'em, funky rhythm. I be kicking, musician inflicting, composition. I'm like Scarface sniffing. That's like seven rhymes in like that one, and then like 2 bars basically. And then if that's New York State of Mind, obviously if you don't know. And then one of my favorite Nas songs. One of my favorite Nas songs, Memory Lane, where he's like some fiend screaming about Supreme Team of Jamaica Queens. Excuse me. And then one of my favorite Nas songs, Memory Lane, where he's like some fiend screaming about Supreme Team of Jamaica Queens thing. Uptown was outpost, and I heard he was kingpin. But yeah, just in that one line, like fiend scream, Supreme Team, Jamaica Queens thing. That's 3 rhymes in like one line. And then also kingpin later. And then if you what's that? Oh, here's my basis, my razor embraces many faces, your telephone blowing black stitches of fat shoelace. I mean, whatever, right? Like bases, embraces, faces, a lot. Or it ain't hard to tell, right? It ain't hard to tell. I kick a skill like Shaquille holds a pill. So skill, Shaquille, pill. Vocabulary spills, I'm ill, plus matic. That's, excuse me. Yeah, so here's my basis. My razor embraces many faces. Your tail blown, black stitches of fat shoelaces. That's Memory Lane. And then it ain't hard to tell. I kick a skill like Shaquille holds a pill. Vocabulary spills, I'm ill. Plus matic, whatever. So that's a lot of rhymes. Or it ain't hard to tell again. Packing like a Rasta in the weed spot. Vocals will squeeze Glocks. MCs eavesdrop, though they need not to sneak. My poetry's deep, I never fell. Noz's round should be locked in a cell. It ain't hard to tell. So that's, weed spot, squeeze Glocks, eavesdrop, though they need not. Like, that's a lot of bars. And it's not like, it's almost like the Eminem lyrical miracle thing, but instead of, it doesn't feel, Eminem's great, but it doesn't feel forced, right? It's not like, oh, like, that's an awfully hot coffee pot. It's like, it's just very effortless. And then Biggie, I think, also same thing, like flow, his voice, his flow, his kind of syncopation, like BIGPOPPA, no info for the DEA. So like those pauses, right? That's syncopation. And then same thing with his, packing a lot of rhymes in a small space, right? Like my downfall. I dream filthy. My mom's and pops mixed me with Jamaican rum and whiskey. So filthy mixed me whiskey. What a set off. Should have put some dead off. Wipe the sweat off. Cause in this world I'm dead off. Squeeze let off. Like that's what set off, dead off, sweat off, dead off again. I guess let off, whatever. Long kiss goodnight. I make your mouthpiece obese like Della Reese. When I release, you lose teeth like Lil Cease. Mouthpiece obese Della Reese. Release, lose teeth, Lil C. That's 6. Oh, nigga, please. Blood floods your dungarees. That's like 8 rhymes in like two lines. So anyway, that is, I'll say that's Biggie's superpower. Like a lot of like dense rhymes, but then also like and then syncopation. They see me in the streets, they be like, "Yo, he nice," but that's on the low though. Be the cats with no dough, try to play me in my show. I'll pull out faux foes and go open they clothes. That's like what? Low dough, no dough, play me in my show, faux foes, go open they close. That's a lot of rhymes in small amount of space. Jay-Z, I think his superpower would be more like his persona, right? Like he's just fly. He can rap, obviously, he has bars, but I think if you really gonna say like his rap superpower, it would be his kind of, Jigga Man, his persona. His flows and stuff are fire too, but getting money, right? Even if you think about like Jay-Z was kind of one of the first people who was just really, really known to be making a lot of money because he had his own label, Rockefeller. Then he started, he was one of the first people to kind of branch out, do the Rockaware thing. Everyone making clothes, Sean John and whatever that label. What was Eminem's clothing label line? What was Eminem's clothing line? Whatever Eminem's clothing line was, right? I'm pretty sure he had one back then. It's gonna bother me now. But anyway, back when all the rappers had clothing lines, right? But Jay-Z was one of the first. Maybe it was Shady. Maybe it was like Shady Wear or something. Shady Limit. I don't know. Whatever. Eminem clothing brand. I swear Eminem had a clothing brand. I guess it's just Shady Limited. Anyway, whatever. The point is that Jay-Z, his is kind of that hustler persona, like his sort of superpower. Like, yeah, he can rhyme and everything, but a lot of his superpower is wrapped up in his persona. Like even if you think about that song DMX, What's My Name? He's like, look at all these off-brand niggas running around yapping about they be holding figures as big as jiggas. That's like rap is very competitive. That's another rapper talking about how much money another rapper has, saying like, yo, Jay-Z has a lot of money. Or even like when he's on Can I Get a What, like if I wasn't a 8-figure nigga by the name of Jigga, like having 8 figures in 1999, I believe when Can I Get a What came out, that's like a lot for a rapper. That's a lot today. So I think that Jay-Z's superpower is sort of like his persona. Can I get a what? That was 1998, right? So 8 figures, 1998 money. You add Biden inflation to that. That's a lot. And then I'd say like Eminem, his is the same thing, like his multi-syllabic rhymes. Like people make fun of the whole like the same thing as sort of like Nas and Biggie to an extent. The multi-syllabic rhymes, although he doesn't have the same type of syncopation where it's like a lot of pauses. But people make fun of the whole lyrical, miracle, spiritual thing. But if you look at I think as the world turns, when he's like class clown freshman, dressed like Les Nessman, after next lesson I'll pass the test guessing. Like freshman, Les Nessman, next lesson, test guessing. Like that is, you can kind of say the whole lyrical, miracle, whatever. But like that, especially back then. Even now, but back then, it's it's Eminem. And even like if you think about the beginning of The Way I Am, like I sit back with this pack of zigzags and this bag of this weed, it gives me the shit needed to be the most meanest. Like this pack, zigzags, this bag, all that like internal rhyme, all this tension dispensing these sentences, getting the stress that's been eating me recently off of this, like tension dispensing sentences. It's like very, very dense rhymes. And then Tupac, I think his voice, right? Like who thinking elementary, just like that, I see the penitentiary, like his voice, his persona. There's a reason like Ja Rule and DMX, short hair or like bald, Biggie bandanas, like everybody, Lil Zane, not that Lil Zane's the biggest rapper ever, but like he copied Pac's whole flow for certain songs. And like Pac had songs where he really, really flowed too, like If I Die Tonight, right? Like that song, some other songs where he really, really flowed. But if you think about Pac, it's like his activism, his passion, the whole Black Panther of it all. And just that, like his voice, where you could really just feel it, like you really felt Pac. So I think with Drake, his superpower, yeah, he can rhyme and all these things, but I think his superpower is that he gets very, very specific, and that specificity allows you to relate to him, right? And so it goes back to that quote, right? Whatever Kenya said about like basically the specific, like again, Blackish literally is. I mean, and Kenya said this before, like Anthony Anderson's character was going to be a TV writer, but that was just not as relatable for audiences, I think. And so, like, he made him an ad executive because it's very similar to writing for TV, where you're sitting around a table, kind of talking to your coworkers. It's not isolated where you're sitting at a desk by yourself. It's at a table. Like the whole thing, Kenya had 5 kids. Blackish, there were 4 kids, and then Kenya had another kid, and Blackish they went from 4 to 5 kids. It's very specific to his experience. If you go, same thing. If you look at Issa Rae, Issa Rae, the character on the show is literally named Issa. So yeah, it's like just making things very, very specific. And I think if you just look at like a lot of Drake's bars, right, just like one thing that he does a lot, he like name drops, right? Like, and that makes something very specific, right? You can say like, oh, I love my friends, I love my dog, whatever, but he'll be like, oh, I'll be with my nigga Chubbs, he in love with street shit. Like he's saying these people's names, right? What else is like very specific, right? Or even if you look at From Time, where he's saying, like another rapper might say, oh, the girl I really needed was this, this girl I used to date who worked at Hooters. But he's like, no, like Courtney from Hooters on Peachtree, which I know he got some flack for that and a little bit of backlash, because it's like these people are private citizens. And so when you kind of say their name, even if you don't say it in a negative way, it can kind of invite, a profile that they didn't want. But even, if you see like the remorse, right? Hard to pay 40, pay Noel, pay Nico back. All the nights I needed to vent to someone in CJ set. All the nights Chubbs was pulling up where I need him at. All the times Mark was making sure that my luggage packed. Like he's naming names, naming specific things that they did. And so I just think specificity, right, makes something relatable. Like getting really, really, really specific. And I think if you're a writer, like if you write music, if you're trying to write a pilot, like for a TV show, if you're trying to write a film, just making it really, like just getting like, how can I make this more specific? Like how can I get more and more specific about this? Because like I said, all these shows, if you think about all these TV shows, like there's a reason, there are other reasons that shows end up being based on people's lives, because, they know that, hey, this is based on your life. You'll never run out of ideas, which means you'll never run out of episode ideas. But anyway, like if you look at Middle of the Ocean, right? He's like, I'm in the Masoni room at the Bibelos, like we going from the Vava to Sync on Sync, like back to the, like he's not saying we're going from the club to the restaurant. He's like, he's naming everything. Like he's specifically, he's getting very specific. Like what else? I mean, even, Club Paradise, right? Like, now I'm that guy that knows strippers by their real names, Rochelle, Jordan. Like I'm sure there were strippers literally named Rochelle and Jordan. Or what else? I'm just trying to think of other examples of, or even like From Time, right? He's like, my mother is 66 and her favorite line to hit me with is, who the F wants to be 70 and alone? Like the reason his music is so confessional is because he's dropping, like he could have just said, oh, like I've already, my mom, someone, so-and-so tells me that, who the F wants to be alone, or who the F wants to be 70 and alone. He's dropping like, my mom is 66 and this is her favorite thing to tell me. So it's just getting more specific, versus just saying, oh, like who wants to be 70 and alone? Like adding the biographical detail, that, that it's your mom, and this is how old she is. And this is like, I think that's why so much of Drake's music serves kind of as like time markers, right? Because people, like when you're making music that's that specific, it kind of sticks with the listener. Because now, like you always hear people saying they miss the old Drake, and it's like what they really miss a lot of times is like they miss, because that like this, it's like, oh, like when Take Care dropped, I was dating this girl and I was living in this dorm, and I was like, I was going through this situation, and so like I miss, so like it's gonna be hard to replicate that because you're not in that place, you're not dating that girl anymore, you're not in that situation anymore. I think like specificity is just like a writing superpower, right? Like that is what is able to elevate sort of like mediocre writing, whether it's songwriting or other types of writing, to kind of be like superior. Or for example, again, like Club Paradise, right? Like they say that all your old girls got somebody new. I said, damn, really, even Rosemary, even Leanne Silly. Again, like just like actually, I'm not just saying the keys to just name drop, to hey, just like just drop as many names as possible, but just like little things like that paint a picture and make it just more vivid and just, I think make it more. I also think there's a reason that like why like this is a little bit separate about why a lot of college students kind of relate to Drake, or people who went to college relate to Drake, because I think it's like you can kind of, it's obviously a very different situation, but like leaving, like Drake's whole thing is like he left Toronto and he would come back, and it's like, oh, these girls, these people who, who he knew, like they're not waiting around for him, like they're dating new people, they've gotten engaged, they've gotten married, they're like their lives have moved on. And so I think in a very small way, it's similar like going to college. Like you go away and then you come back home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and maybe not even spring break. You come back home for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. A lot of times, not even the summer, because you're doing internships. So maybe like the beginning and the end of the summer. And so it's like, oh, these people's lives have kind of moved on. But yeah, I'm trying to think of just other examples of like being specific. Oh, I think, another thing, right? Like I think Say What's Real. I think this is when, not that anyone could have predicted that Drake was going to be, who he was. But I think this is probably the line that like if I ever think of like, oh, when I was like, oh, this guy's special, this guy's different, it'll probably be Say What's Real, where he's like, watching Ho's show, embarrassed to pull my camera out, and my mother embarrassed to pull my Phantom out, so I park about 5 houses down. She said I shouldn't have it until I have the crown, but I don't want to feel the need to wear disguises around. Right? I think any other rapper would have just said, oh, I have a Phantom. Like, look at me, I have a Phantom, I'm a baller, I have a Phantom. And he's like, but like that's not very relatable, right? Like a lot of people can't relate to having a Phantom because a lot of people just don't have Phantoms or cars that are similar. But what a lot of people can relate to is like having a parent who disapproves of your spending habits or just disapproves of something that you did, period. Right? So taking something that's like really, really like not relatable at all, having a Phantom at like freaking 21, 22 or whatever at the age of So Far Gone, to something that's like very relatable, which is like, oh, like your mom doesn't want you to have this thing, like she thinks it's dumb that you spend your money on this. You can see those tweets that go really viral. That's like, oh, people who live at home, they're always getting packages because they're always ordering like clothes and stuff. And it's like your parents kind of look at you like, yo, like, what's up? It's like, hey, get your money out, mom. But yeah, so I think just like stuff like that just makes it take stuff that's like not very relatable and then makes it more relatable. Or even just like talking about specificity, right? Like if you look at, which was really funny, like on Middle of the Ocean, Middle of the Ocean, I remember on Twitter when it dropped, everyone was kind of laughing in those bars because it's like, for your birthday, your boyfriend got a party bus, bottle signs, club line should have come with us. We left that shit in 09 when we was coming up. Or, for your birthday, your man got a table of hibachi. Last time I ate there, Wayne was doing numbers off the cup like Yahtzee, and Paris Hilton was steady ducking the paparazzi. Quavo might have sent me a song that he called Versace. Whatever, right? And I think, any other rapper would just be like, oh, your boyfriend's a lame. Your boyfriend's lame. I'm cool, your boyfriend's lame. Like, how many bars just kind of equate to like, yo, your man is lame, your man's whack. Versus Drake being like, your boyfriend got you a party bus. Your boyfriend got you a table of hibachi. Like, that's like another way of just getting very specific as opposed to just saying a very broad thing, which is your boyfriend's lame, I'm cooler than your boyfriend, I'm better. And then also just like, doing like kind of first person. Like I think, I remember during what's it called? During the Rap Radar interview, around the time, I don't know, like a few years ago now. Jeez, time flies because of the pandemic. Everything blurs into 1 year. But I think it was B Dot that said on Rap Radar that said that his favorite Drake's best song was The Ride, which I think Drake was like disagreed with. Which I was like, okay, I can see why you would disagree with that because it's saying that your best work is like from 10 years ago. But I do think there's an argument for that, and that's another song where it gets very kind of first person, right? It's like taking this thing that's really that's really not relatable, which is like being a star, and then taking it and making it very relatable by like kind of doing a first person sort of point of view of what that looks like, where he's like, and you do dinners at French Laundry in Napa Valley, scallops and glasses of Dolce, that shit's right up your alley. You see her going, you ask about her, basically it's saying like, this is what it's like. and painting it very vividly, right? And using these specific, scout, like that's a very specific visual, right? Dinners at, he's not like saying dinners at French Laundry. Like he's not saying, oh, you do dinner at fancy restaurants. It's like dinners at French Laundry in Napa Valley, scallops and glasses of Dolce. Like it's painting a very, very vivid picture by getting very, very, very specific. So yeah, I think specificity, just if you're writing, whatever type of writing you're doing, if you're writing a comedy, you're writing a drama, you're writing a, whatever you're writing, getting specific, I think, is just a key to elevating that piece of writing. Also, let's see, funny things from the show. So there's like this little kind of friends and family section. And so like KD was there, Odell, Aaron Judge, who I didn't know, I don't watch baseball, but I thought he was like a basketball player. I just saw like a tall dude next to me, with like kind of like a big head. But anyway, so, the mayor, the funniest part of the show is probably that like the mayor, Eric Adams, because everyone he says he's so mixy, but he was like, he came by that kind of friends and family area. He was like chill, was friendly, but just a couple times throughout the night where he would be like moving from point A to point B within the show, and he had this like phalanx of NYPD officers, like two in front of him. They had kind of like fancier sort of jackets than the normal NYPD. I don't know. It was as if he was like it felt like out of a Batman movie. Like he was like the president. They were like, they'd be like, the mayor's moving. Like, hey, the mayor, like, hey, stop. No one's moving until, hey, get her back up. No one's moving until the mayor. It's like, obviously Eric Adams is going, he may be president someday, and he was eating it all up. But of all the people who, like, if you were to rank the people who were, like, people were most interested in, obviously Drake, and then probably KD, and then maybe Aaron Judge, and then maybe Odell. Like, no one was really that pressed for the mayor, but it was just like they were moving him as if he was, you would think it was like Barack Obama, like multiplied by the Pope. Like just the way they were like, yo, the mayor's moving. No one move. Like, hey, clear this area out. We're about to move the mayor. It's like, relax. No one, I think the mayor's, I mean, obviously he's an important guy, and it's not like he's the mayor of like a small, I'm not going to name a specific town. I don't want to upset anybody. But he's not like he's the mayor of some really tiny town, like Mobile, Alabama or something. No offense to Mobile. He's the mayor of New York. But it was very funny. They were just getting very, very fussy about him. Another thing I thought about as I wrap this up is you always hear, I remember like with like what's that show? Rory and Mal. They always kind of like have this kind of jaded view, like, oh, like basically they're not ever pressed about anything, right? They make fun of people who kind of will post pictures with Jay-Z, like, yo, that's Big Bro. Shout out Big Bro. That type of thing where you take a picture with a rapper that you don't really know, or a athlete. You're like, yo, Big Bro said keep working. And I do think like when they do that, I understand. Like I see both sides because like not to that extent, but I definitely when I moved to LA, I had to get if I was around, whoever, right? Not whoever, but certain people. I was like, oh, I gotta get a picture, and obviously that's a way to. It's like not a smart long term move. I understand for most people, they're not going to. For most people, it's like you're not going to be around that person ever again. So it's like, oh, I want to capture this moment. This means this is incredible. But being in that little section, it made me think about how like there's a guy who came up was really want to get a picture with Katie, like really want to get a picture with Katie, and he was asking the person who like there was like this kind of bouncer she was turning out. She loved Drake. She was like he was asking her like, I just want to get a picture with Kevin, like with KD, like just. Whatever, and she was kind of like, oh, yeah, also Rich Kleiman was there. Shout out to Rich Kleiman, and the whole 35 Ventures. But like I was like, oh, this, that's, because these guys, they want to just be left alone. And I think there's the other flip side of it where people are like, oh, but the reason that you have all this money is because you have these fans, so you should kind of service them. But anyway, he really wanted to get a picture with Katie, and he ended up asking like Katie's security, and Katie was like, all right, yeah, fine, you get a picture. Dude got the picture. Like 2 or 3 minutes later, he comes back. He wants to get a video, and like Katie's just like, bro, like come on, And it made me think about looking. I mean, I don't think I was ever that extra, but looking back and just like the importance of you always hear people in the entertainment industry talking about, especially music. You know how to move, like how to move, right? You gotta know how to move, and I think that I'm like, what do you mean how to move? Like you move like one foot in front of the other. But that's a real thing, right? I think that, I think about like Zach Bia, right? And shout out to Zach Bia. He just dropped a song with Don Toliver as part of his compilation. But everyone's always been wondering, like, well, how did Zach Bia, how does Zach Bia, I read, like, it's crazy when you read crazy, like, you read lies about yourself online or when you read lies about people right? And I think, I've read so many crazy things about Zach Bia, and it's like, oh, he, you know, his dad's this big Dior executive, or he's a dealer to the stars, or he, you know, he's got blackmail on some sort of celebrities, or he like, and it's like Zach Bia is just a guy who knew how to move. Like he was there's a group in LA that owns kind of the spots, the restaurants and clubs that all the celebrities go to, and especially like from 2015 to like 2018, 19, like you would go to, you know, these, you know, the nice guy Delilah, and you'd always see like faithfully every night, to the point that people were camped out, just like teens would like camp out outside of the nice guy, or outside of, not really Delilah as much, but, you know, outside these restaurants, because they knew they would get a glimpse of Kylie or Kendall or Bieber or whoever. And so, you know, Bia was, and especially an intern to the owner of that group of that hospitality group, basically. And Bia was just kind of tasked with like, hey, you know, this celebrity's out back, you know, because obviously celebrities usually come through a back door. So, hey, this celebrity's out back, can you go get him? Hey, this celebrity's friend, you know, needs some, you know, wants some cigarettes, can you run to the store? And then that kind of grew into, hey, you know, that kind of grew into kind of promoting. And then, you know, all these celebrities were like, hey, this guy's like chill. He's not in my face asking for a selfie. He's not like, oh, dude, like, bro, like, he's not, you know, he's just there. Like, he's not doing anything that's going to make himself noticed, right? He's not being annoying. He's not asking me for a selfie. He's not saying, hey, can I FaceTime my friend? He's a giant fan of yours, and like, I just want to let him know. You know, he's not doing a bunch of things to prove that he was here with me. And so they always kind of started taking a liking to him. And that, you know, he kind of took off with that. Like, it's not anything more sinister than that. Or I think about a buddy of mine who I was able to meet out there, Eddie Bansky Gonzalez, right? He has a podcast with Kevin Durant. And I think my understanding of how that podcast came about is that Eddie was a gigantic LeBron fan on Twitter, and would be kind of just like talking crap about KD on Twitter. And KD responded from one of his burner accounts, and they kind of started DMing, and now they're like best friends. He was at the show with Kevin, and he, you know, now they have a podcast together, right? And it's like, not like, for anyone who wants to be in the industry, like this applies to probably a very small select number of people, but there's a ton of value in just not fangirling or fanboying, right? Like, not in just being, you know, like not like acting like you've been there before, even if you haven't been there before, right? And that's like, you know, it's a lot harder to do, right? It's like, it's very easy for me to act like I've been there before and not, you know, I'm whatever, like not have to like, yeah, I gotta take my phone out and Snapchat, oh yeah, I'm with Kevin and Odell and, you know, whoever else. But you know, so it's definitely harder if you've not been there. But I think for people who like aspire to work in the industry, like literally, you know, it's crazy when I see all these things about Zach Bia again. Like, literally, he just knew how to move. He was, you know, he was around, intern, kind of promoter. They just liked him because he didn't bring any attention to himself. And so I think, you know, for anyone who's kind of aspiring to be in one of these kind of entertainment type of industry, you know, this is quote unquote not another industry podcast. I guess I'll end it on that is, hey, just like be chill. I certainly wasn't in my early 20s. I was definitely like, you know, I got to pull the phone out. I got to get the picture with, you know, I've archived most of them, but go through my Instagram. There's like you know, go back to like 2016, 2017. But, you know, I think, or right, it's 2015, 2016 really. But yeah, I think that was just something I thought about when I was there. I was like, oh yeah, like, especially when I saw that guy like kind of come up and, you know, Kevin let him get the picture, and then he's like, oh, I gotta get, and just seeing, you know, Kevin Durant's like 7 feet tall, so it's hard, you can't really hide. And to be fair, I will say, like, people did leave him alone for the most part, and also, I mean, he was also in this section that was kind of like friends and family. But I think that, you know, that's one piece of advice that I think people who are trying to navigate the quote unquote entertainment industry could probably use, is to just be, you know, just don't do anything to bring attention to yourself. Like, be, you know, hey, like, if you know, because you can like really fumble, like, yeah, you'll get that selfie that you can post and get however many likes, but then whoever that person isn't going to, they'll never see you the same way again. They're not going to think of you as like a peer. They're going to think of you as like a fan. And by the way, this advice only applies to like a very small number of people who, you know, are trying to have careers in the quote unquote entertainment industry. So anyway, that's the point of this. Shout out to the whole team. Thank you for hooking me up. Appreciate it. Appreciate the love. Amazing show. I hope there's got to be a video of it sometime. I really think, every musician has to have that kind of iconic performance. And I think this might have been that for Drake. Like, it's a really iconic performance, an iconic location, Harlem. And I think even just knowing, he has that line, I think in the Family Feud, where he's like, black excellence, but when it comes to me, it's not the same, though. And I think, people kind of forget, because he's Canadian, because he's like half Jewish, or I don't know, I guess if you're half Jewish, you're just Jewish. That he's, that like the things about black, like when we celebrate black excellence, people don't really ever think or talk about Drake, like having a $500 million music deal, doing everything that he's done. Oh no, it was Diplomatic Immunity, not Family Feud, where he said black excellence, but when it comes to me, it's not the same though. All good, whatever. And so I do think that, like, Drake at a, even if he's light skinned, and Canadian, at a venue like the Apollo in Harlem, 2 nights, just like really brought it, really did honor to that location. And like you could tell, like, the friend, when I got the ticket, like I kind of flattered my way in. I was like, hey, like I saw the videos from night 1, like I know you must have put a lot of work into that, like that it looked amazing. I'd love to see, whatever. But that was true. Like the set was really dope. Like it was there was a production value to it. And so anyway, great show. I hope there's a video on it sometime. But yeah, any writers, specificity, get specific. Don't say, oh, I used to date, the one that I really wanted was that girl I used to date. The one that I really wanted was that girl who worked at Hooters. No, Courtney from Hooters at Peachtree. And like obviously I know, like I think that's a line that he might regret, because I think that brought a lot of attention to her. But just in general, right? Like just think about the way he is specific, that he, he's not, yo, my boys. He's saying, oh, Nico, Chubbs. No, he's dropping the names. Yeah, so that is this episode. Oh my goodness, it was not supposed to be this long, but yeah, catch you next episode. Have some cool guests lined up, and make sure to follow the show.